Hello and welcome to episode 234 of Retro Power Uncut. And you'll notice it's me starting the video. Nat is enjoying a well-deserved week off over the Easter holidays. So it's down to me to try and muddle my way through the metal workshop stuff, which is pushing me out of my comfort zone, but I will try my very best. What I'm actually going to start by saying is a thank you, actually, just a huge thank you to all the people who watch these videos. It means probably more to us than you think it does. Particularly poignant reading through all the comments last week about Richard. Really brought it home to me how much people seem to care about what we do. So it's very nice. We're so kind of eyes down, just grafting away in here, that we kind of lose touch with how people appreciate what we do, and that people do look forward to watching these videos every week. So keep it up. And I'm going to say something which I never normally say because I think it's too stereotypically YouTuber, but we are approaching 70,000 subscribers, which is completely mind-blowing to me. But I think we're about 400 away. It would be awesome if we could push that past the 70,000 mark this weekend. So if you go and hit the subscribe button now or at the end of the video, let's see if we can get over 70,000 subscribers this weekend. That would absolutely make my weekend. Right, without further ado, let's see what we've been up to. So E-type, Matt's been on various little things on this. So rear number plate area. So if you're a regular viewer, you'll know that we're doing a flip-up number plate mech here. And that is because there's a billet piece going in here which has the emergency manual release for the boot lid, because that's going to be on an electric release. It has the reverse camera and it has a magnetic trickle charger point. And so we need a number plate that flips up out the way so the camera can see when you select reverse, but also we need to be able to manually lift it to put the trickle charger on when there's no power to it. So George and Luke have been working on the mechanism, actually Luke specifically this week, which I'm sure he'll talk about in a bit. But we just wanted to finish off some of the metalwork around here. We just noticed it was slightly uneven. The shape wasn't 100% perfect one side to the other. So Matt's just gone in there, done a little bit of lead work around that just to absolutely crisp up the lines of that aperture. And then the next step on that is going to be actually installing the mechanism that Luke's been designing. So that's that. The doors. And it's going to sound strange that I'm referring to doors, given that what you're about to see is some little handles. But the doors are going to be electrically released on this. So there's going to be a button on the fob which electrically opens the door. There'll be a hidden electrical button elsewhere on the car to do that. And there'll be a button inside to open the door when you're in the car. However, we want manual backups, of course, in case of failure or an emergency situation. So we are putting some little manual levers just behind the seats in the sort of cross bulkhead panel. They're actually Alfa Romeo 105 boot release levers that normally sit in the door apertures, but they're really, really nice, flush fitting chrome. They just seemed like a really good choice in this. They're going to be hidden discreetly away behind the seats, but they're in a position where if you want to open the door electrically and it fails for whatever reason, you can just reach down behind your seat and pull the lever and manually open the door. There's also going to be a second set of release levers, possibly not the same ones, but in the boot. And that is in case you need to get in from the outside and there's an electrical failure of some sort. We've kind of designed in a sequence of things. So behind the number plate, I mentioned there's an emergency release. That's a lockable release that you can put the key in, open the boot, and then once you've got into the boot, there'll be a set of emergency release handles for the doors within the boot as well. So, and the battery's in the boot. So it's kind of we're thinking through a logical sequence of recoveries in the event of failure. So if the door electrical releases fail, you can release them manually from inside. You can release them manually from outside by getting into the boot. If the battery fails, you can still get into the boot manually to replace the battery or to jump it. So I think we've thought through all the eventualities. So yeah, that's another job. And then he's been cleaning up, well, removing and just cleaning up the dash area, getting rid of the original brackets ahead of receiving the carbon dash. So the entire dash fascia and centre console fascia and kind of the side structure of the centre console and lower lip of the centre console is all a single piece carbon fibre moulding that we've designed, which is being made now. They've machined the pattern at KS Composites now. It's like a full-sized MDF piece, and the owner of the car's already said, oh, it'd be cool to keep that and turning it into like a gaming simulator. So they're going to be cracking on with that, but ahead of that I know we're going to need to remove all the original bracketry, so we've done that. There was also a little bit of final welding to do around the steering column mounting. It's got a BMW, I think it's 7 Series, but I can't remember the generation, electrically adjustable column in it, and the mounting for that was put in a while ago, but there was some final welds to do in the scuttle area. So they've been done, and then had it up on the lift to do the handbrake actuator. So it's going to have an electric handbrake, but we're using the Jaguar handbrake or handbrake type calipers on the back. Actually, I say handbrake type calipers, they're not, it's shoes inside the discs. So it's running an outboard disc setup with XJS vented disc hub carriers, discs and calipers, and then the handbrake mechanisms are in the shoes inside the bell of the disc. So we're still using that standard mechanism, but there'll be a linear actuator effectively operating the handbrake. It's a setup from a company in the States called E-stop, which is just quite a nice little setup because it's got a sort of load monitoring, so it pulls to a fixed tension each time you pull it. So we've fabricated the brackets for that. That sits just in more or less the only available space left under there now, which is underneath the prop shaft rearwards of the transmission. The remaining space will be filled with the exhaust running each side of that, and we just should be receiving the manifolds. So we've got classic fabs to do the exhaust manifolds for this. They did the ones for the 6-cylinder E-type that we've been working on previously, and they did a really nice job. So we've decided to get them to do the manifolds for this, but then we'll build the system from there back. So that's that, and I feel like there's one more job, but I can't remember what it was, so I'm going to leave it. The other thing on this, Luke will talk about, is we are finalising the rear light design and doing prototypes and an alignment jig for that, so we can do the cuts into the body for where they're going to sit. So we're just trying to get through all of the remaining things that dictate metalwork on the car. And yeah, as I say, those rear lights are one of them. The remainder of the HVAC system, which George showed you last week, we've got to do the mounts in the footwell for that, and then mountings for a sort of false floor panel that will sit over that for the passenger's feet. So that's where we're at with that. Right, moving on to Wasabi, the Saab project, and I don't know where to stand really on this. I'll go over here. Nat mentioned last week that Bobby had tied up all of the sill structure. All that's done now. 2 have become 1, like the Spice Girls, and we are moving on to basically hanging the doors and doing the A-pillar structure. Nat mentioned last week that these sort of hinge mounts for the door hinges had warped slightly when some of the holes were welded up on the inner A-pillar. So Bobby's been readjusting that, basically getting the door on there, readjusting the angle of everything there, and then bracing it up. If you look on the other side, there's a temporary brace on both of these. These are just temporary for the time being, because what he's designed is a series of little bulkhead plates, and I feel like I should probably grab one of those plates to show you. Just bear with. Told you I'd be muddling my way through this. So here we go. I think this is for the other side, but there is a sequence of these little bulkhead plates that essentially will, I think they sit, this one's that way up on the other side. They'll sit at various stages where these pen marks are. I think there's 4 of them sitting all the way up there, which basically brace this entire structure and the hinge mounts into the A-pillar area and tie it into a tube. In fact, the tube is here, which sits all the way up here, ties all the way forward into here. So basically we're tying this entire structure together down into the sill, forward into this structural area here, which kind of is where the strength in the bulkhead is here. But there's a lot to think about, and because this kind of distorted slightly, it then had to be re-angled. These plates, which had already been made, needed to be tweaked slightly, and then he's trying to think through all the sequence of events that need to happen in the right order, because one of the things that's notable about this area is it's also going to be a water drain. So we've got this water collection area here, which will collect any water that comes down the windscreen, and there'll be a drain here, which is then going to drain into this pillar. Now, we thought about running a tube all the way down through here, but we decided eventually that would probably cause more problems than it would solve, because we were worried it would get blocked very easily, and if you try, because it's going to have quite a convoluted route, trying to unblock it might be problematic. So we decided we're just going to drain water through this area, which means we've got to seam seal everything, we've got to prime everything, and all that's got to be done in the right order. And each of these bulkhead plates has had to have a drain put into it, I think this piece in the corner is the drain in this instance. So essentially when the water comes into this area, it'll flow down into here, probably collect in one of these plates, then drain out through the drain to the next one and eventually make its way all the way to the bottom. And then there'll be some really large drain holes at the bottom here to let the water out. So yeah, it's trying to think through every eventuality and get everything in the right order, ducks in a row as you will. So yeah, it's looking pretty good though. I think he's kind of on the final stretch. Everything's about fitting now. It's often the case, and you'll see with things like the Allegros that we're working on the interiors of, you go through these phases where it looks like you're not achieving very much because you're kind of getting the ducks in a row. You're kind of making sure every piece is ready, trialing this piece, trialing that piece, prepping this piece, prepping that piece. And you've got this whole jigsaw puzzle of pieces, and then that means that actually everything comes together quite quickly. So I suspect actually over the coming week or so, this area on both sides is actually going to take shape pretty quickly. But one of the things that's been consuming a lot of Bobby's time this week has just been getting the door alignment good, tweaking the positions of these hinges because they're pretty structural, pretty beefy, to get everything looking good, get the lines looking good, get the shut lines looking good, and then we can get all of that lot buttoned up. And then yeah, it's just moving on to the whatever the next part of the extremely daunting and big puzzle is. I think probably this rear part of the inner wing at the top here, and then he's going to be moving on eventually to the scuttle area and how the wiper mechanism is going to fit. And then Nat mentioned previously that the quarters, so these outer quarters are actually going to come off and be replaced with carbon fibre wide quarters, and the same is true of the doors. But we'll also have to modify the door frame structure because of course the front and rear edges of the door will need to be brought out to the new revised body shape to mate up with the wide carbon skin that we're going to introduce. But yeah, it's all going in the right direction and very exciting actually. It's impressive seeing, there was a nice comment actually on Global Workshop. So our customers have an app, Global Workshop, which we use to manage most things here, but they get a media feed through of photos and videos that's much more in depth than what you see on the YouTube videos, and they're able to comment. And actually the owner of this car made a very nice and suitable comment last week about the fact that Bobby's been doing an amazing job, and although it obviously takes a whole team to pull off the whole lot, I think his words were something to do with the guy who's taking the penalty has the most pressure or something like that. So it was a very nice comment. So BMW E9, I'm going to try and fiddle my way around here and look at what Stu's been up to. Essentially excavating the sill and starting to get new metal in. It's Stu basically doing what he does best, which is absolutely ploughing through rust repair at an astonishing rate and working out how to make complicated sections at also an equally astonishing rate. So there was an area here which is quite complicated. It's a lot of layers all together, and it was so corroded it was quite hard to work out exactly how it used to be. But he's done a good job, sussed it all out. This section here, which is kind of a joining piece that braces the loop that goes around the arch into the innermost skin of the sill, that was a piece we didn't have as a repair section, so he's grafted in a new bottom edge to that. In fact, I've probably got the original piece from, I would guess. Nope. One of these pieces, that one there, I think would have been the original bottom edge of that, which as you can see was a bit past it, and they put 1,000 spot welds in it. It's always fun when you're drilling them out. So he's remade the bottom of that. He's also remade the bottom of this arch section here, which I think would be one of these pieces, that piece there. So that piece is the bottom of this, which also ties into the front edge of the inner arch tub. Made a new section, let that in, and with that bit all made good, and he's also repaired the subframe mount which sits under here. So it's quite a critical corner, that, because it's kind of where the rear subframe mounts, its main mounting point, which ties into the kind of the arch tub, the inner sill structure, the floor structure in a corner there. And then that's allowed him to get the inner sill in. These repair panels that we've got are really good. We've all been impressed with the quality of them. So inner sill repair panels in. That involved then re-welding the end of this box section here and the seat mount onto the top of it, and not forgetting to put the seatbelt anchorages in, although it's not easy to forget on this, given that we've got this bracing section bolted to it. And then he's sort of ready to put the mid-sill reinforcer and the outer sill sections in. but he's going to move on while he's got easier access to doing the floor section. So we've got some floor repair panels, which they're not around, but there's a front floor repair panel, but it's not the whole thing because the front floor pan basically is all the way across. So there has to be a join somewhere that, in a non-factory position. So what he's decided to do, because we've only got really rust along where the outer sill is, he's going to cut and join it on top of where it welds to the chassis leg. So he's just drilling out the spot welds there. He's going to take out a section and let in basically the front floor pan area up to the chassis leg there. Get that front corner all good, and then I think we're going to work on a reinforcer. Nat might have mentioned before, we're going to do an outrigger that comes from the chassis leg out to this corner to add strength into a bit that's a bit questionable strength-wise, as they are originally on this. We're obviously putting a lot more power in this than it had originally, so there's going to be various areas we want to strengthen up. Rear subframe mounts being one. We're going to put an outrigger in there to tie the chassis leg into the sill, because that's definitely an area that's quite weak. This front chassis leg kind of goes under the floor and attaches under the seat cross rail here, but there's not really a lot to brace it going up and down other than the inner wing, which is a bit flimsy. So we're going to gusset it to the bulkhead in here, but we're also going to tie it to the sill structure, which is pretty strong because it'll tie into the bottom of this pillar. So yeah, going in the right direction on that. DBS, most of that progress George will talk about. So he's had a week of just crunching numbers and listing files and general desk-based mental trauma. One of the practical things that's going on though is this. So on the main frame rails, where they kick up over the axle, we're doing some nice little kind of curved miters, if you like, on these. So George has done a little cutting template, which is this piece that's plasmid on here, so he can scribe out a pattern, which essentially then means you cut a section out of the side of the box, and then you can fold the miter round, and it gives it, as you can see on here, basically a curved outer face. So you can weld all that up, and it gives you a really nice mitered bend, but with a curved face, which looks a lot nicer. So yeah, he's done a little drawing format there and a cutting template. But I do believe I saw an email fire off yesterday, which was a massive list of files going to, I think it was Mac Industries. I'm hoping I've got that right. If I've not, I'll put a link below to, or a subtitle across. And they are going to be doing all of the laser cutting of those parts. And in some instances, where there's folded parts, they're going to be CNC folding them. So at some point over the coming weeks, we will receive a massive delivery of laser cut and folded components, which will go together to allow us to start making the chassis for this. So, but George will show you a bit more on that in a minute. Right, this is where I hand over to myself. Let's go through to the assembly shop. Thank you very much, Cal. And we're going to go straight onto this Allegro, which is looking absolutely awesome. You saw Richard's top-notch work last week, where he just finished leathering the dash and the steering wheel. So obviously excitement kicked in, and they decided we're actually at the point we can start getting everything together interior-wise. We were just waiting on the HVAC duct piece, which I think Luke might cover, but we're using the original Integra HVAC unit, so everything inside this is Honda Integra, the whole heater box aircon unit. The change we've made is the ducting that goes on the top of it that used to obviously mate up with the Integra ducting. We've done a little 3D printed piece that sort of breaks out the demist vents, the four face vents that we've got in there. So that's been finished. That was the last piece that needed to go behind the dash, which meant I could get the dash in. So yeah, we've got the whole section, the whole thing, main part of it is 3D printed. There's a little aluminium sort of finishing piece at the front there. And then the demist vents are a 3D print with a machined and gunmetal anodized inlay in there, which is kind of the accent colour throughout on this. And then we've got the tweeters, which are the Morel Virtus Nano speaker setup. So the front doors have got the Virtus Nano really slim speakers, and the tweeters are in the dash. So that's looking amazing. A steering wheel, kind of threw that in to see how that looked, which looks also absolutely superb. You'll see we've got a 3D print section on the front here, which is the last piece of that steering wheel setup, which is the cover that kind of fills the gap between the actual wheel frame and the original Integra column shroud, and that covers up the wiring. It comes off the back of the horn switches, and then the wiring will go to the original kind of contact on the steering boss. So we've just prototyped those, happy with that. So that's going to be a final 3D print. I think we'll sub that out to Pro Total, who have been doing some very nice final 3D printed parts for us. So that'll be an SLS print. Don't want to do that brown leather. There's a ton of brown leather in here, and I think we need to break it up here and there. So we're going to do the main shroud, which is the original Integra one in leather, but then have that as a black printed finish. You saw the instrument binnacle come back last week, which we've trial fitted in the car now with everything in place. Looks great, so that's going to go away for black anodizing. So again, we've introduced the accent gunmetal colour, but on the bezels of the instruments. So the actual whole instrument pod is black, but the bezels of the instruments are that gunmetal colour, which kind of is tied in throughout elsewhere in the interior. So the next bit is the central sort of console part of the dash, which has got the volume control and the little Motec screen on there, which has the additional engine data. So you've got speedo and tacho, traditional analog, and then all your remaining engine data will be on the Motec screen. And with that in, we can then double check our dimensions for the lower sections of the dash, and then move on to printing those, and they'll be the final parts there. I just threaded through the rear heated screen wires at the back, which was the last job that needed doing before we could fit the parcel shelf, so that's going to be going in very soon. So yeah, it's going to be very exciting that we're at this point, as I was saying a bit next door, when we have this kind of getting all the ingredients ready and then progress reasonably quickly. Actually, we'll be able to progress to shelf in, rear seats in, rear cards in. We've got to just pattern and make the carpets, but we'll be progressing pretty quickly through that, and there'll be quite a sudden transformation. It'd be nice to see the windscreen in as well. That's always a big transformative thing when you start putting glass into cars, because there's the sort of seeing the unfinished apertures kind of makes the car look a lot less finished than it is in some instances, and it's amazing how much it transforms things putting the glass in. And then Alex and Steve have been on with wiring, so they've got one of the engine harnesses made up. It's just been laid in to check all the lengths before they go ahead and terminate everything on that. And then I think Steve's been on with that, and Alex has been on with one of the front legs, or the two front legs of the harness that come through to connect to everything around the front end. So that's being laid out on the table at the moment. But yeah, it's looking like we're getting very, very close to engine harness completion, which, in fairness, doesn't leave an enormous amount to button up in terms of the general build of the car. There's a few little details to go through still, but yeah, it's getting to super exciting stage. Really can't wait to see these come together. I think in the early stages, when we first sort of announced these, even the staff here were split 50-50 as to whether they liked the idea or not, and I think the general public likewise. But I think people have kind of come around to it as they've seen them come together, and I think, to be honest, as it stands now, these are definitely one of the favourite builds that I think we've got here. Although, to be fair, they're all absolutely amazing. We kind of I think we take for granted a lot the amazing array of cars we've got around us all the time, and probably don't appreciate it as much as we should. Anyway, moving on from that, Project Churchill. Jim's just been doing he's cutting a plywood infill for where the spare wheel well is, which will be carpeted, and then that will basically slot in over the spare wheel, and that'll form the remainder of the flat floor in the boot, and then there'll just be a boot carpet to go over that. So little step forward on that. Moving on to the Jensen, George has just been on with the grille installations. So all the grills are kind of fabricated slats with spaces between. You saw them previously being painted and cerakoted. They've all been mounted up now, there's a bit of a job involved with that, because they have to be spaced to exactly line up with the body. So it's making different size spacer shims for all the mounting points just to get the grills lining up perfectly. But he's cracked on with that, so that's looking fantastic. And then lurking in the background behind that is Project Kuma, which excitingly I took for a little drive down the road very last thing yesterday, and it was literally just down the road. But all seemed pretty good, so I think later today I should be heading out for test driving that, and we are going to be going through the process of starting to get some miles on it. So I won't show you that this week. I shall keep that one in the bag for next week, but hopefully next week we'll see the first drive out footage for that car. And on that note, I'm going to hand over to the CAD Den to see what they've been up to.
Right. Hello and welcome back to the CAD cell. So this week it's been, well, to be fair, it's been a very short week for me, because I was off. We was obviously not here on Monday because of Easter, and then I wasn't here on Tuesday because I fancied a day off. So now it's Thursday. So what I've been on with is going through the arduous task of sorting all the CAD out for the chassis. So we're all happy with the design now. Nat and Cal have all gone through it and made sure I haven't made any blundering errors, and I hadn't, so that's good. So now it's been the process of going through it. I've colour coded it into different sections, so which I won't go into because that's just boring and no one cares. But yeah, effectively going through every single sheet metal part, labelling it, getting it to a point where we can send it to the laser cutters, because we're going to get these laser cut just to kind of increase the accuracy compared to our plasma. And then that can then all be sent off, cut out, and then come back to us, and we can hopefully just simply assemble it, and it will go as smoothly as that. So yeah, that's effectively what I've been on for the last day, which has been a really fun task, as everyone can imagine. And so yeah, I'm going to swiftly pass on to Luke, and he'll talk to you about all the many things he's been on with.
Hey guys. Thank you very much, George. So what have I been up with? That is a very good question. E-type rear lights, what I've literally got in my hand right now. This is a full, hopefully final prototype of the near side rear light for the E-type. So I printed off this, I've got to do the other side, and then I'm also going to print off a sort of locating jig for Matt to cut holes in the rear of the E-type so we can get these mounted in, and then finish the rest of the stuff that needs to happen on the E-type. That gets painted and prepped and everything. I then rescan the car at that point, and then I'll redo all the back cuts for this light based off of that scan, because obviously it might change slightly in the overall shape after it's been like prepped, painted and all of that good stuff. So that's kind of next steps on the E-type for me. And then also quickly touching on the Allegro, Cal has just put in the trim dash and lower section. I'll let him talk about that a little bit, but I'm stoked on that. I think I've said for like ages now, oh guys, the interior is going to be going in soon, and it is actually in now, and I'm really happy with how that's turned out. So now I've just printed off the second half for the HVAC topper, and after I finish filming this video I'm going to bond that to the other half, put that in, and then the rest of the dash can start to go in. And then other than that, the MG center console, which you guys have kind of seen over the last few weeks, has now been fully signed off. Client's really happy. I've started doing the final prints for that. All the outsourced jobs have been put on Basecamp, and they're going to get sent out to the relevant people for them to get made, and then that can be sent over to the den and then put in the car. That's also going to look really cool. I'm excited to see that come together. And then, yeah, I think it's a relatively short one this week. We had bank holiday. Hope everyone had a great bank holiday weekend. And
It's also the morning of Thursday.
It's also the morning of Thursday, yeah. Yeah, I think I'm going to leave it there and hand it back to the lovely people downstairs. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you very much, guys. And I'm going to hand over to Nick down at the den this week to see what's been going on down there.
Hello and welcome back to the den. So quick line up of cars outside. We've got the 500 SEC come over from Spain, the SL which Richard has been talking about, the E46 CSL, absolute holy grail this thing. I'm slightly in love with it. Really awesome driving experience. It is as good as everyone says it is, and the gearbox is always a bit Marmite in these. For me, I like it. I think it really works. So we've done a full inspection on this car. Really lovely condition, no major issues. Couple of little odd things, but nothing serious. So we're going to be doing some preventative maintenance, including the big end bearings, which is quite a common failure on these. But before we get into that, we're going to see what the engine oil analysis report comes back and says, because you get quite high levels of copper in the engine oil, which indicates the bearings are on the way out. So we can have a look at that. Customer also wants big brake kits. We're going to be fitting big brake kits. BMW M cars of this kind of vintage typically suffered with not very good brakes. Once you start pushing them on a track, or in some cases on the road, if you're feeling a bit fruity on the road, they can give up the ghost quite easily. So we're going to be doing big brake kits on it. Possibly looking at some suspension upgrades as well. That's a little bit TBC. Other than that, yeah, really lovely thing. Doesn't really want a lot. Been very well looked after. The RetroPower XJC. So we have done a bit of a health check on this, and a service for its new owner. Nothing really to report on it of any interest. There's a couple of little things we're going to sort out for the new customer, but essentially just a lovely thing. LS3 in it, super cool, and I think we might do a little video driving that at some point in a week or two. Really cool thing, love that. Behind Jamie we have completely different kettle of fish. The Subaru Forester 2015. This is an XT, so it's a turbocharged engine still. Really lovely customer, just got dropped off this morning, and he is of the mindset it's too good to just sort of pass on and let someone else run it into the ground. So we're going to give it a new lease of life. So we'll be doing our inspection on this next week. There's some bodywork issues that he wants sorting out, and some paint, some dents. He wants the audio and the nav upgrading, so we'll look at an Apple CarPlay or similar, and have a look at the mechanicals, and just make sure the mechanicals are all up to date and okay and nice and safe and sound. So really good that a solid car is getting looked after and is not just being thrown on the scrap heap. Big fan of that. Inside, V70 T5 looks like a police car because it was a police car. So I think if this car could tell stories, I think it'd be quite interesting. So we've done inspection on this, some mechanical items, wishbones, gearbox front mount, exhaust, and full service items, basically just to get it in tip-top health. The owner's going on a bit of a European road trip, and just wants to make sure it's all nice and sound and nothing dramatic's going to happen while he's on that trip, which is, I'm sure, not going to be the issue. Very cool thing. In our detailing bay, Chris has just finished the MGB. So this had some paint work before it came back to us on this visit. So we've finished that, and the bits that weren't painted we've obviously machine polished as well. This has got a 3-year ceramic coat on it, and he's done the bright work and so on. And when Richard and James have finished the interior, then he'll come back and he'll just treat and coat all the interior, to the carpets and the seats, which are all going to be new. And I know Richard's kind of talked about the interior bits on this, and I've been nursing his sentimental knob, which Jamie will get a close-up of. So we wanted to have well, the customer sort of requested a bespoke gear stick for the Tremec gearbox that we fitted, and he wanted to keep the original knob. So we've basically got designed and had made the stainless knob, so that will fit on there. And then Richard's, cheers Luke, Richard's gear gaiter will then just marry up into that recess on there. But really nice action on that, nice length, and that's going to work really, really well. So very pleased with that. And we've managed to get the thread in the top so that the pattern on the top of the knob is actually in the right orientation as well. So that's cool. So that's the MG. There's a few little mechanical bits to finish, but we're on a deadline of next week on this. I've got a couple of bits, speedo drive for the Tremec box and reverse light switch plug, and subject to a bit of a road test and a sanity check. Mechanically, that's basically finished. Windscreen's going to go in this afternoon. And then we're going to look at getting the roof on probably when Richard's got more of the interior finished. We'll look at doing the roof. MGF, just quickly, I'm not sure if this was talked about last week, to be honest. So the MGF, we've dropped all the back end out of this. Whole rear subframe assembly with the engine gearbox, all the suspension has been dropped out, and we will then get on to getting that stripped and refurbished. So we're gonna have all the suspension apart, rebush, refinish, put some life back into that. Engine will do sort of preventative maintenance. We'll do the cam belt, water pump and so on while that's all out. Probably do starter motor, alternator, because they're 5-minute jobs when the engine's all out of the car. Rear main seal, diff output seals off the top of my head, water hoses, anything kind of perishable like that really will change. So that's the bulk of this job, and then we'll be working forward. So the customer's got a new roof for it. We'll be doing the upholstery, and the customer supplied all new brakes as well, so we'll be getting on to doing those bits and bobs. Barchetta, no real update on the Barchetta. There's another couple of extra things just for us to finish looking at, having communicated with the customer, but no real update on that. The Golf, Luke is working with the other Luke just to do some bits with the air intake, just so it's kind of OEM subtle but with a bit of improved performance. So we've gone a little bit 90, so we've hole sawed the bottom of the airbox just to allow a bit more flow through there. And then we're doing a couple of bits to run some ducting, some nice silicon ducting down to one of the grills under the lights down here. And then we'll do a section on the back of that grill to mate the pipe to, just so it gets a really good proper cold air feed. And then we've got an ITG filter from our friends at ITG, not too far away in Coventry. Fantastic things. It's a big fan of ITG. So we've got a panel filter that go into that airbox, and we'll have already covered the detailing on this. Looks amazing. Love that car. Lupo's putting up a bit of a fight at the moment. The clutch is basically dead, so the next thing really is for us to drop the gearbox out, change the clutch. I'm still really looking forward to getting this going. It's got 1.8 turbo in it from an early TT, so it's going to be quite potent. And all the right bits are there on the car. It just needs a bit of love, a bit of finishing off, a bit of tidying up, and get it going. So that's excellent. The E30, we've got a couple of bits. There's an interior section, so the fascia around the radio we're swapping. So the customer has sourced a 3D printed fascia, which basically allows the radio, the original radio, to be recessed in slightly more because they stick out a little bit. So we're going to be fitting that. We're not going to talk about that, and there's no update on the Alpha at the moment. And I think that is everything going on at the Den. So I will throw upstairs to Richard. Bye for now.
Right, here we go. One last, how's it everybody? Hope you're good. Good to be back. Yeah, so this is probably, this is the last time I'll do the little update. Next time it's going to be James over there. He's already putting his head everywhere. You'll be fine, dude. Okay, so let's go SL. Jamie's got some nice shots. Last week we said we're on with the door cards. The seats are in, they look brilliant. So here's a door card. James is literally, he's now fitted, he's organised the embroidery, that came out nice. We fitted the little inserts in. We had to put a bit of a Plastizote foam, it's a closed cell foam that we put in here. Then we cut that shape out so it recesses in, so it doesn't sit on top, because we want it to look nice and smooth. So those came out really nice. We had to put some diamond stitching to imitate the same design as the seats. We couldn't do this, the defined diamonds, because that would have been too thick to wrap around. So we went for like a, I think we went for a 6mm scrim in the end, and then you still just glue it down on the stitch. So just enough definition to still make it look cool and not be. And then I think we mentioned it, we're deleting the big armrest because this client is a big guy. So this normal door handle armrest was actually hitting his leg. So we introduced the little pull strap. So that's going to sit exactly there where it is. So that's cool. We got these little blanking plates. And then once all the other little chrome bits come in, it really comes alive. So it's really going to be a focal point inside the car as well. So we are happy with it, and we can only hope that the client is going to be as happy as we are, and that he's going to enjoy this for many years to come. So you'll see this progress in the next day or two, really. We're actually aiming to have this done by end of play tomorrow. We're waiting for one embroidery to get back to us. So that's SL, that's going very chuffed. James is doing a cracking job on that. He's also on the MG, the other project, we've got this is the rear bulkhead that we redesigned. We've put some speakers there. I probably did mention this before. We were going to put a little trap door there, and there's a cut-off switch in the back and a charging point in the back there. So we had to just make access to be able to get in there without having to take this whole panel off, because this was pretty much going to be a permanent fixture in the vehicle. So nice and discreet. This will all be carpeted. James did this, did a lovely job. He made it look nice on the inside. He put a little stopper plate, because usually with these, if you're not careful, if you push it too hard, then it flaps to the side, then you struggle to get it. So that can't go, that's as far as it can go. So it can only go to a perfect position. And probably when it's in the car, and if I don't tell you, you probably won't notice that. So that's really cool. So that's going to go in. I'm on with the carpets. So we've done the dyno matting, and now I'm doing the dyno liner and the carpet sort of together, because we're changing effectively the height of the floor. The patterns change a little bit, and I just wanted to be sure not to just dyno liner and matting it everywhere and then realize, oh, now I have to peel it off because I need a little bit more glue in places to make a card go in, and the little gaps and everything. So the dyno matting, which is a soft one, and the carpet sort of goes together. So I'm on with it. I think Jamie's got me doing some of the sill parts. Rest of the day we're hoping to have the parcel shelf area all in place by end of play today, maybe tomorrow. So maybe Jamie can come back and get some shots of that. So, but it looks like we are gonna finish the SL before I go, so James don't have to stress about that too much, and I get to see a completed vehicle, which is great. And we will, if not, we will probably be like 99% there with the MG before I go. So everything's going great. Me and James are working good together. Retro Power, the Den, and you guys are going to be in good hands. So also, I just want to mention, I read all the comments. Thank you for all the kind words and wishing me well, and same to you guys. I'll see you out there somewhere. Cheers.
Thank you very much, Richard. And yeah, next week, I wonder if we'll manage to persuade James to be on camera. We'll find out. In the meantime, go and subscribe now. Let's try and get over that 70,000 mark this weekend, and we'll catch you again next week.